when Elena initially asked me to serve on this panel with fellow women in STEM and STEAM, I was like, why? Because my background is in marketing and my background is in, my professional background is in higher education. So today, my story is actually about me publishing my website, which has officially been live for a year now. So I have been vegan for a little over 5 years now, and my intention for that started with my health and then moved into making decisions that felt best for my community's health and then to the health of the planet. And as I find myself making decisions that are best for my health, it trickles out in that way. And that's really how I started to get involved with climate. I barely want to say science because I am not a climate scientist, but we can't all be climate scientists because who would design the posters, like Olivia said, and who would communicate this information? So publishing my website was a really big feat for me. Last year, I knew that I wanted to make a bigger difference within the climate space. And like Molly said, I was experiencing intense climate anxiety. Where I was living at the time did not have any sunrise movements. They didn't have a lot of structural support for me to get involved in the climate movement. So I had to kind of find and navigate my way there. As I said, I was working in higher education, so there were a lot of community members who supported research and education, but I was also living in a state that was highly intoxicated by the coal industry. So I did get involved in community organizations that were working on everything from creating policymaker guides to translating science to community members and creating that community resilience, because we have a lot of FEMA flood zones where I was living, and we experienced 100-year floods multiple times within a 5-year span. So that was helpful for me. Taking direct action helped to quell my climate anxiety, but I also found myself recognizing that there was a limit of what I could do within my community. And within that, I started to talk a lot to my friends and family, and I recognized that I was kind of getting on their nerves, so I just started to write it out. And that's how my blogging started. So it takes me a very long time to write blogs because there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. But I started my website just by putting out blogs that felt emotionally would resonate with me and people who also felt alienated and isolated within the spaces that they were living or the spaces that they were working. But I also wanted to make sure that this wasn't just about how I felt. So every single time that I would go into publish something, I made sure that there was climate science behind it. I also made sure that I had my information correct. So I enrolled in the Yale Climate Change and Health Program. I also took 2 other climate change certificates over the past year as well with different programs. And taking this action both within my community as well as personally so I could continue my education helped me a lot and empowered me as well as built up my resilience. So for me, resilience is kind of the base point, but I want to go even further than that. So once we have that resilience, how can we go further? And I quit my job, moved across the country, and completely changed careers because this is so important to me. And I feel so passionate about creating a livable future for all of us. So again, I'm so incredibly humbled to be here on this panel. I could probably talk forever about the things that I have changed and would like to change going forward. But really, I would say probably in terms of the takeaways is the more that we empower ourselves individually, the more that we empower our community, right? So don't feel bad if you're not doing everything, because you just can't. You can't do everything. Like, I sold my car and I bike now, which is amazing, but I couldn't have done that where I lived before. And I had a lot of guilt with that. So don't feel bad if you're not doing everything, but you got to do something. We got to do something. The other thing is, don't think that you don't know enough. Like, me being asked to be on this panel was super, super humbling. Me being in the space of the folks who were in the Yale Climate Change and Health program was super humbling for me, because I still don't feel like I have a science background, and I still don't feel qualified to communicate anything about clients or climate scientists or climate, excuse me, I'm getting a little bit nervous. But no matter what, it's enough to tell your story. And then the other thing that I will just leave everyone with is to make sure that we fully feel our feelings. As Molly said, this is something that every single person who gets born behind us has to deal with. And there's a lot of emotions with that. And what's been missing with the numbers, especially for folks who are less data oriented, is the emotion behind that. Once we feel that, oh, we're losing pieces of our home, then we can fully move forward. And that's how we build resilience. So we have to be honest with that.